Lester?
Missouri.
Missouri?
Yep.
How'd you end up in Minnesota?
Well, that's a good question. But I grew up down in Missouri until I was 20 years old and went into the Army.
Were you drafted or did you join?
I drafted.
Okay.
And when I got out of there, well, then my wife, she's in Sioux City, Iowa. So I come back home. That was my home for about 8 years. I guess it's 8 years. And
Let's start with, you were in which town in Missouri?
Polk County,
Polk County?
yeah,
And
in little town of Huron, Missouri. I don't think it's on the map anymore.
you enlisted in
No,
what year?
No, I didn't
You were
enlist
drafted in what year, I mean?
in 42.
In 42, okay.
Mhm.
Now, when you were drafted, and did you go to Fort Leonard, Missouri? Where'd you go for
No,
basic?
I had to go to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas.
God, wasn't Fort Leonard in place at the time?
No, I don't know what the deal was, but anyhow, I had to go to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas.
For basic training?
No,
Then-
when I took me for the Army, when they called me
Right, so
to
that's
get my basic training.
basic training, boot camp. And after,
Oh,
Hmm?
go ahead.
after you finished boot camp, then where did you go next?
Well, I didn't do training there in Fort Leavenworth.
Oh,
I was just drafted in there, and then they sent me home for 2 weeks. And then they called me back, and then they took me to Camp Maxey, Texas.
okay, so that's what your basic training was?
Right.
For about 6 to 8 weeks, roughly?
No, it was 13 basic weeks
Oh, 13
of
then?
basic
Okay,
training.
wow. And then after you got out of basic training, what were you assigned to?
Oh, I was a truck driver.
Okay,
I was pulling a gun.
and now you're there, you're out of basic, you're assigned to truck driving.
Hmm.
And how much time did you spend in the States before you went overseas?
Well, from the time I was inducted in 42 until September 44, we went overseas.
Did you go to the Pacific or Europe?
Europe,
You go over by ship?
yeah.
And where did you get on the ship at?
In Port in New York.
Oh, okay, New York.
Mhm.
And the ship took you where? To England?
Took me to Cherbourg, France.
And this was when in 44?
That's September.
So this is after.
That's when we got over there.
This is after D-Day then.
Oh yeah.
Way after. That was
Yeah.
June 6th, 44, I believe.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. And what kind of a unit were you assigned to?
Field artillery.
Field artillery.
Yeah.
And you were driving the truck?
Well, no, at the time I left truck driving and I went to the gun crew. See, and then I was a gun crew for about 2 or 3, 4 months before I went overseas.
Okay, now that you're in France, where did you deploy next after your?
Well, first place we went to was Holland, just over the line from France. And then we wasn't doing anything. So the thing was pretty slow. So then they come up with this Red Ball Express thing.
Yes.
So then they took everybody to get all the trucks they could get to haul supplies from Cherbourg, France to Arnhem, Holland.
Was that part of Patton's?
Yeah,
Supply
that's over
line?
blood and guts. Everybody hated him.
He had a pretty squeaky voice, didn't he?
Yeah, he was a hateful guy though, mean. He didn't care a thing about men.
Yeah. Okay, now are you driving truck in the Red Ball Express?
Yeah, for about 6 weeks.
So where'd you drive to besides Holland?
Well, we drive from, we were stationed up in France, see.
Okay.
We'd come back from Holland to a place in France, and that was our gas up and sleeping point when we slept. So we'd take a truck from there and go to Cherbourg, get a load, come back through there, gas up and take off and go to Arnhem, Holland, and then unload and come back. And then we was off the trucks for like 4 to 6 hours that we could sleep and eat. Then we was on it again where we went.
Now, did you ever haul supplies beyond
Yeah,
Holland?
all kinds of supplies, gasoline, explosive, ammunition, food, you name it, the tank tracks, whatever.
Now, did you ever carry these supplies beyond Holland, someplace else?
No, I never did, because as soon as we got off the Red Ball Express then we went directly into combat.
Then you ended up in the infantry?
No, I was still in the field artillery.
Field artillery.
Hmm.
Okay. So you drove the truck, and after that was done, you ended up in a battle whereabouts?
Well, we didn't go into battle right off, but we went up into that area. And then by the time we got our supplies and everything set up, that was still up in the edges, right out of Belgium, just over the line into Germany.
Okay.
And but at that time, well, then the Germans were getting pretty well beat up, backed off. So then we moved into where they had moved out of, right up close. And we were spread pretty thin that time, that army was. And so then we was there, and then that was being like in December the 19th to be exact, when the Battle of the Bulge broke loose. And of course the Germans, they didn't last too long because they didn't have enough supplies and so forth. So we got them stopped after they passed us. They went in for about 30 miles or so. And we finally got their supply line cut off with their artillery and planes and so forth. Then we kind of sat for 2 or 3 days because they couldn't get supplies and they couldn't get out, see. So then finally they decided, well, we'd have to give it up, so they all surrendered. And then it was a mess. I don't know how many there was of them left that they had to go out. So of course everybody escorted them out and so forth to get rid of them.
Any idea how many there were that surrendered then?
No, I don't.
Did your group have to look after them, or somebody else did?
Well, we did for a piece of ways, not very long though, just until they got out of our area. But they've quite a group of them.
Okay, once they were taken prisoner, then where did you go next?
Go next after that?
Yeah.
Oh man, not after that for about from the 19th of, this Battle of the Bulge was from the 19th of December until or 16th of December until the 19th of January. And that's where we was at all that time, over New Year's and so forth.
So you were in the middle of the Battle of the Bulge then?
Yes, well, I was right to the edge of it,
Okay.
right where they went through. And we was one of firing on their supply lines.
But
And then on the north of us was English army, and they was firing, we was firing this way across, and the Germans had went this way. So finally we got the supply lines cut off, and then they was pretty much done for, because they had no ammunition, they couldn't get food, they couldn't get nothing.
so that's what broke the back of the Battle of the
Yeah,
Bulge? then?
right.
You cut the supplies off,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
they surrendered, or they just left?
No, they just surrendered. They couldn't do anything, so they just threw everything down and started walking out.
Any idea where they took them?
No, I don't.
Okay, now the Battle of Bulge is over with. Did you continue on into Germany?
Oh yeah.
Where'd you go next?
After the Battle of the Bulge, we was kind of regrouped and resupplied and everything from the 19th of January till the 23rd of February. And 23rd of February then, that was for my little outfit,
Yeah.
was the worst place we'd ever got to or get into, because when we started out like 3:01 in the morning to cross the Roar River, and it wasn't very wide, maybe it's from here to that vehicle over there, but it was deep and swift, and the banks were high on it. And before we got halfway there, well, they started shelling us. And then, of course, we couldn't do nothing because we had our guns hooked on the trucks we were moving, see. So,
Did they have some kind of boat or bridge to go across? Or?
well, the engineers was up there, and we didn't have a bridge, and they didn't have a boat. They had pushed the banks in enough with logs in there that we had to go down and up out of it.
Okay.
So we did get across, but it took us about 4 or 5 hours to get it.
You were driving a truck at the time?
No, I was with the gun crew all the time. I didn't drive a truck after we went overseas at all. I had my own gun crew.
So what pulled the guns in?
What?
What pulled it? Must have had trucks to pull the
That,
guns.
well, here in the States, we pulled them with those big 12-ton Diamond T's.
Okay.
But just before we went overseas, well, they had done away with them, and they got what they called a troop carryall. It was built on tracks like a tank, only the top of it was just flat, and it just had seats on top. It would be like this, to have seats on the top.
Okay.
And then we hauled everything on that, our clothes and our
Now you
ammunition and whatever we
got
had.
across the river.
Yeah.
Then where'd you go next?
Well, I don't know all the places we went through,
Okay.
but we ended up over by Essen, Germany, and on that.
Did you have to get involved in any more battles after the Battle of Bulge?
Not too much by that time. Well, I'll take that back. We had to go to, I don't know, about 30-something miles, I think, to the Rhine River. Of course, that wasn't, we wasn't bothered to that, because they already had them bombed out there. So then we didn't do too much artillery after that. So then after we got across the Rhine, why everything was moving so fast that they didn't really need much artillery because they couldn't get their own supplies, see. So they took our little battalion and attached it to an infantry division and let us go out, had us going out, picking up the stray German guys that had word to move back, see. So it'd be a little pocket here, a little pocket there, a little pocket there. And we was going out collecting them and bringing them in as prisoners, see.
Once you brought them in, who took the prisoners from that point?
Oh, the officer, we had an officer with us. We'd have an officer, and then we had his own vehicle, and we had another one that carried the guys that's doing the collecting. And we'd get them to give them to him, and he'd put them on the truck and take them back to wherever they'd run away with them.
Okay. Now you're in Germany, you crossed the Rhine,
Yeah.
and you're just helping clean up. What happened next? Where did you go next?
Well, there's several different. I got a map I could show you, but
Sure, later.
I don't know. We ended up clear over east of Hanover, south and east of Hanover. It's about 50 miles out of Berlin. And that's where we was when it ended.
How do you know the war came to an end? How did the word get to you?
Well, we didn't for about 4 days. And then we finally passed down, see, from headquarters somehow or other, I don't know.
Well, when you got the word, did you have to take any more prisoners after that?
No,
Okay.
no, because we had guys that was 200 miles ahead of us.
Oh,
They didn't really have what they called a line. We had people going as far as 250 or 75 miles ahead. They was going this way, see, going to circle them.
right.
And the Elbe River, they got over there, and we was just a little ways off the Elbe River, maybe 10 miles. So when they stopped,
Did they tell you that Hitler had shot himself?
no, we didn't even know that.
No.
Mm-mm.
They just said the war's over. That's all you knew?
Yeah, not for probably 2 weeks or so.
What happened next? Once you got the word, then what happened next?
Well, we just everything just sat around for a few days because getting word down, see, to everybody. So then they shipped us out for just a little ways to a little train station place, and we sat there for about a week, and then they moved us down, clear down to Passau, Germany. That's clear down on the south side, southeast side. And we was down there. We was picking up ammunition places that hadn't been used, see where it had been stored, different places. We was going around collecting them and getting them cleaned out, get rid of it.
This is your ammunition stockpile. You bringing the stockpile home?
No, we just took them over and threw them in the Enns River.
Oh,
That's what they done with it, that we
That's
collected. And then,
bullets and artillery both?
no, we wasn't in a boat.
No, I mean, did you throw the bullets and the artillery shells
Oh,
in the river?
yeah, the whole works in there, just pick them up and throw them out.
Ah,
We had shells in there that weighed 40, 50, 60 pounds, like little bombs, really. Just pick them up and throw them out there before you get it.
let them sink in the mud.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're still there today.
I don't know, well, I suppose they're all deteriorated by now, but
Yeah, taking it. Okay, you're in Germany, and how do you get to the boat to go home?
oh, after we was at Passau, then we was there for maybe a month or so, and then they shipped us back up north, about halfway up in the state, to a place that was a TB sanitarium type of place, see, just a building, and that's where we stayed, and then we done guard duty between the U.S. and the Russian.
And this is
Control.
whereabouts? The location is where? Still in Germany?
It's called the King David Hotel, and I don't really know what town. There wasn't any town of any size close to it.
Which country were you in then?
Germany.
Still in Germany.
Oh
okay.
yeah, we was in Germany all the time until we come home.
How much time did you have to spend in Germany after the war was over? A
Oh.
month or so?
From the 8th of May till the end of the year.
A whole year?
From the 8th of May.
Oh, you stayed in Germany for a year.
Well, it was
I mean,
Well-
once the war was over. How
when the
long?
war was over. Maybe they think 8th,
Okay.
and we was there till the next January.
That's a long time.
About 8 months.
What they have you doing?
Guard duty and so forth like that, mostly. Just,
After the 8 months were up, then you got to go home?
yeah. Well, I'll put it this way. We was doing that guard duty from the hotel place, and when we got done there, they sent us down about, I don't know, halfway out the other side of the state to a displaced persons camp we was there for about 2 weeks. Guard duty there. And then they took and put us on a train and took us to the Havre, France. And we was down there for Thanksgiving. And we stayed there then a little after Thanksgiving. And they put us on a boat and we were going across to Southampton, England. And we got over to England and we stayed there till after Christmas and got on a boat and come home. That was
probably in January then?
Yeah, I got home, I think, the 19th of January
Now,
in 46.
once you got it, I assume you went into the port of New York? Did you arrive in New York or?
Yeah,
Baltimore?
we arrived in New York.
And you got a train or what to go home?
Well, we unloaded off the ship and they had a list of all the people where they had to go to. And as you come down the gangplank, they just ask you where you, but they had it marked, and they'd say, you go this way, and this guy, you go that way, you go that way, you go this way. And I got off the boat and went with the crowd. We got on the train and went to Jefferson Barracks, Missouri. That's where I was discharged.
So you got on the train in New York and they took you all the way to
Yeah.
Missouri?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Non-stop train service?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Once you got out of the Army, you went home. How far was the home from the
Well,
port?
I don't know, from Jefferson Barracks, Missouri till Sioux City, Iowa. That was probably
How'd you get to Sioux City?
a train.
Train again,
Oh, that's where I got my discharge, was in the Jefferson Barracks.
right.
And then I got on the train there and rode to Sioux City.
What month was that when you got home then?
January
Oh, January,
Mhm.
okay.
of 45, 19th day of January.
When you were doing the artillery, did you have to worry about the Germans firing back at you?
No, they done it. You didn't have to worry about it. It was there. The planes, the
They
strafing.
took care of them.
Yeah,
So you were lucky that nobody was firing at you.
they were, if they could find us.
Oh,
But they would come. They would use their planes and bombs and strafe. That's where was the worst part. Like,
so you were on the perimeter of the Battle of the Bulge, and the Germans were taking their planes.
the Germans would fly around and could come in back of us. So we'd have to look back more than we did a forward one for the planes, because they come back and we was right out in a field. You know, with the artillery, you can't have too much protection around you because it interferes with your ammunition. You fire one here, and if you go within 15 yards of anything out there, it's off. They had different fuses they put in it. So, like Christmas, New Year's Day, we were still over there at the Battle of the Bulge. You know, a beautiful day like this, and we had an anti-aircraft crew sitting down 300 yards from us or so forth that was protecting us from air. Well, planes would come over and here they bang, 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 bang. Here go the plane. They done that for about a week or better. That was before New Year's. So when New Year's Eve come, everything was pretty still and nothing going on. And somehow or other, the guys from the aircraft gun found some liquor somewhere. I don't know where they got it. And they was having a party that night before, on New Year's Eve. And I told my crew, I said, you better hope that we don't have any planes coming over tomorrow after them guys are having a ball down there tonight. So the next day, beautiful day, sun bright and shiny just like it is here now. About 9 o'clock, here come the planes. And those anti-aircraft guys went out there. And out of 5 planes, they knocked 3 of them down after the night's party. So I told the crew, I said, we better find them more liquor. I don't know where they got it.
When they were shooting the planes before, did they get very many or just a few?
They didn't get any of them. That's why we didn't hope they was done coming over on.
gosh.
So that's why I told them we better get them more liquor, because they were bringing them down.
Well, that probably didn't happen, but now, how many days were you sitting in that one spot with the artillery crew?
All the time at the Battle of the Bulge is on from
Oh, the whole thing?
they started from the day it ended, because there's no other place we could go. We'd be going away from it, see, and the Germans.
Was there a problem getting supplies into you, ammunition?
Oh no, we didn't have a problem. No,
Okay.
we just cut the supply lines the German had off, and
So the trucks would come in and deliver what you needed?
to us, yeah. But the trucks, I don't know. See, the artillery, you never know what you're firing at,
Yep.
because they'll call a fire order into you, and they'll give you the angle and the elevation
Right.
and the charge of it that you want for distance.
Is that what
And
they call forward controllers?
forward, yeah,
Forward.
they have a forward controller up
Yeah.
ahead where the infantry is, and then he'll call in whatever target he finds. He'll call into our headquarters wherever our officer is, and report it and tell him what and where and how far it is and so forth. And then he'll call up orders to the gun, and you set off your gun readings, hit it in there and let her go.
Did they ever tell you if you hit your target or not?
No, because you didn't see an officer once a week or more.
You just kept shooting, as they said.
No, they would tell you when they call an order in. It'd be from 1 to 4 shots, see,
Okay.
per gun. And that way it should pulverize just about anything that they could get hold of.
Did they ever tell you if you hit your target or not?
No, because,
You just kept shooting when they said to?
no, they wouldn't, you just shot what they told you to.
Okay.
If it's 1 or 2 or 3, they'd call it in, fire 1 or 2 or 4, whatever,
What size millimeter was the gun?
155 millimeter.
Oh, okay, big one.
The shells was like 96.4 pounds, projectile was, and then they had the powder charge of,
Behind that.
and it had increments that you could put in or take off for distance, see.
Different size of charges for the distance you want.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Wow,
So-
90 pounds per projectile. That had to be kind of hard to handle.
Well, it's not as bad as you'd think.
Yeah.
I had a big old boy from North Carolina, I think he was, that he could grab one of those shells and run over there and put it in there. See, the shells, they just got a opening in the tapered end of it, and it's got a plug with a loop on it that you screw that out and you put a
Fuse?
fuse in it, and then stick it in the gun, and you have to set the fuse, whatever the reading they have give you.
When the airplanes were trying to take you out, did you ever get hit by shrapnel or anything?
Well, yeah, I got a spot here in my arm. I got a little piece of shrapnel right over here. I got hot phosphorus on this hand.
So you had pieces that had to come out then.
Well, yeah.
Did you
But,
end up in the hospital?
No, it was shrapnel, it wasn't shell, but bullets.
Oh, bullet,
No, it wasn't no bullets.
Okay.
Well, just shrapnel
right.
that we get. And
How'd you get it out? Someone take it out for you?
this one that went in my arm, I had on my shirt, my field jacket, a heavy sweatshirt, and a field jacket, my overcoat. And the overcoat cuffs are like this wide, see, and they're about that thick. And that piece went clear through all that, and then from here down to about here. I still got a scar here,
How'd you get it out? Went straight through.
When you pull the coat out, it pulled it out,
Oh, gee.
pulled the coat off. It went through the coat cuff and the whole bit, see. Same with the one back here.
How'd you get it out?
It come out when I took the coat off.
Oh, that one too. Oh,
That,
both of them.
this one back here did, no. It went through, but when I pulled my arm up and the guy looked at it, oh, it was sticking out about so far. So we just grabbed it and yanked it, and it didn't get it all. There's still a little piece of it in there.
To this
and
day.
It's still sore.
Did you ever try to have the doctors take it out for you?
No, because I talked to them and they said, well, it's like a, what do you call it?
Like a BB in Jello?
Yeah,
Can't get at it?
it sits there. It said it'll just sit there, won't cause any
It'll
problem.
work itself out.
But it never did. It's still, you touch it just right, it's still sore.
I would
But
think they
that's-
could fix that today if you wanted to fix it.
Well, it's just a little piece in there now.
Oh,
Evidently, the tip end, when they pulled it out, must have broke off in there or something, I don't know.
oh, okay.
But then the phosphorus, this is when I got my hand burned, so you can see a little bit difference there, up here.
Okay.
And that was from our own artillery, though. But the Germans had captured the gun, and then they used our ammunition backfiring at us. And when it, I don't know if you know about phosphorus or not,
Yes.
but when it explodes, it just spews, see? It's hot like scalding water, and that's what happened here. It spewed out, and if, you put your hands up here over your head,
Protect your face.
and it splattered on my hand. But other than that, well, I come
What'd
out.
you have to do for that when it got on your hand? You go to medics?
Oh, we just bandaged it up, you know. We had the first aid kits with us, so we just doctored up with that.
Once you bandaged it up, how long did it take before the pain went away?
Oh, I'll tell you, in that time of year in cold weather, you much pain from the cold as it was from that. So, didn't make much difference. But I didn't have to use it too much, because I had a crew of men, see, and I had to follow orders from that they called down. So I was pretty lucky that way.
Okay. We're doing these videos for the younger generation to understand, high school kids and
Yeah.
older,
Mm.
so they understand why they're here today.
Oh, I don't know.
So that's why it's important to videotape all of our veterans.
I don't know.
Have I missed anything?
But
I don't think so. He could have had a Purple Heart when he turned it down.
Now you got wounded with shrapnel. That puts you in line for a Purple Heart.
well, I could have got one.
Yeah.
But I told that when the captain come around, he asked about it, see, and I told him it didn't amount to much, because it's just skin deep in there. He said, I can get you a Purple Heart for that. And I said, give it to some poor guy who really needs it.
Yeah, I'm sure there were a lot of people who were wounded much worse. But that doesn't matter. You were in
No.
combat, you were in battle. You got wounded, you deserve
But
it.
I was lucky, though.
Yep.
I didn't get hurt much.
Yep.
I had 197 days straight time without a break anywhere.
And that was where? Where were you at then?
Over in Germany, I went during the war before it ended,
197 days straight through?
straight combat.
And that was all over? Not just
No.
the Battle of the Bulge,
That's all of it from the Battle of the Bulge clear up till it
to
ended.
the end of it?
During Red Ball
196
Express.
197 straight days?
Yep.
Yeah. You earned the Purple Heart.
When we went across the Rohr River and over across the Rhine, I hadn't had a good bath from the time I left the Battle of the Bulge until I got to Essen, Germany. Had about 2.5 months.
You had a chance to shave it all?
Well, scissors.
Oh, okay.
Had a little pair of scissors you cut them off with. People looked ragged, man.
People what?
Looked ragged.
Oh, I would imagine,
Oh, man.
especially not having to
But-
bathe.
It's one of those things, I guess.
Well, you came back and a whole new life started.
Yeah, it makes you feel guilty, though.
Well, why?
Why?
Yeah, why? A lot of men didn't come home.
Yeah,
Well, look at it this way. I talked to a gentleman who was delivering coal to Nova Scotia. And he said they were playing baseball after it was unloaded, and it was D-Day. He said, then they found out that the invasion was on, and our boys were dying on the beach. They said they felt guilty, because here they are playing baseball. So they stopped playing baseball. So it all depends on what you're assigned to. Some people were assigned to the mail department. They never saw combat, and they felt guilty. So I can understand that. If I missed anything, I should be asking you.
I don't know.
It's hard to, yeah, we'll just play it by ear. Okay, what I want to do here.
They
That's-
probably, I just don't care about the rest of it, I guess.
Yeah. Lester, thanks for
Uh,
taking the time to talk to me. It's
There's-
important. It's
there's-
really important.
There's lots of things that I don't want to talk about,
Yeah.
you know.
Look, in combat, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of things that people don't want to see, and that's part of it, and it's not necessary to talk about it. It isn't necessary. Just the general story of leaving home, what you had to do, and coming back.
the coming back was a good part,
Yeah,
but it's still, I felt guilty.
yeah, I can understand. Well, you're not the only person that said that, so it's quite common. Thank you.
You're welcome.